There is a question that almost nobody is willing to ask out loud. It is not a controversial question. It is not a hateful question. It is simply a factual question that makes most people deeply uncomfortable. Why do Jewish people build wealth at a rate that is statistically impossible to explain, while billions of people around the world, regardless of how hard they work, remain financially stuck for their entire lives? This is the question, and today we are going to answer it. Not with stereotypes, not with conspiracy theories, not with modern financial advice, with the Torah. The actual answer has been sitting inside one of the oldest books in human civilization for over 3,000 years, hiding in plain sight, taught to Jewish children from the moment they can read, ignored entirely by the rest of the world. And I will warn you now, the answer is not what you want to hear. It is not comfortable. It is not simple. And it will challenge almost everything you have ever been taught about money. But if you watch this video to the end, and if you are honest enough to accept what the Torah actually teaches, your relationship with money will never be the same again. Before we go any further, I need to establish one fact. This is not an opinion. This is not a theory. These are numbers. Jewish people represent approximately 0.2% of the global population, 0.2%. Yet they account for roughly 23% of all Nobel Prize winners in human history. They lead a disproportionate share of the world's most powerful financial institutions. And on the Forbes list of the wealthiest Americans, Jewish families appear at a rate nearly 40 times higher than their share of the population would statistically predict. 40 times. In a world where most people attribute wealth to luck, to inheritance, to connections, or to circumstance, these numbers demand a different explanation, because luck does not operate at 40 times the statistical rate. Luck is random. These numbers are not random. So what is the explanation? The explanation is a system, a philosophy, a way of thinking about money, time, and obligation that has been passed from generation to generation inside Jewish communities for 3,000 years. And that system comes directly from the Torah. Now, here is the first thing the Torah teaches about money that almost no one in the modern world believes. The money is not yours. Read that again. The money is not yours. In Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18, the Torah states explicitly, "You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you power to make wealth." This is not poetry. This is a financial philosophy. The Torah teaches that human beings do not generate wealth. They are merely stewards of wealth, channels through which prosperity flows when they conduct themselves properly. Now, to a modern secular mind, this might sound like religious abstraction, but follow the practical implication for a moment. If the money is not yours, if you are a steward rather than an owner, then your entire relationship with money changes fundamentally. A steward does not waste what he is given. A steward does not spend impulsively. A steward does not make financial decisions based on emotion, ego, or the desire to impress other people. A steward asks one question about every single financial decision. Is this the wisest possible use of what I have been entrusted with? This one mental shift from ownership to stewardship changes everything. Most people treat money as something to be consumed, something earned and then spent, something that defines their status and their identity. The Torah teaches the exact opposite. Money is not a possession, it is a responsibility. And your job, your sacred obligation, is to multiply it, protect it, and eventually transfer it to the next generation in better condition than you received it. This is not a spiritual concept dressed in financial language. This is a practical operating system for building wealth across generations. The second principle the Torah teaches, and this is the one nobody wants to hear, is that time obeys discipline. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 11 says this, "Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it." 3,000 years ago, written in ancient Hebrew, and it is describing exactly what modern behavioral finance has now confirmed. The greatest destroyer of wealth is not the stock market, not inflation, not bad luck. It is impatience. Jewish financial culture has always maintained an almost obsessive reverence for patience and long-term thinking. The concept of compound interest, which Albert Einstein reportedly called the eighth wonder of the world, was understood in principle by Jewish scholars long before any bank gave it a name. The Talmud contains detailed discussions about the growth of money over time, about the power of consistent accumulation, and about the destructive nature of debt, in texts written over 2,000 years ago. But here is what the Torah actually says about time that goes beyond finance. It says that the most powerful financial resource a human being possesses is not capital. It is not connections. It is not intelligence. It is years. Every year you spend without a disciplined financial system is a year of compound growth that can never be recovered. Not ever. Time spent without a system is permanently gone. Most people understand this intellectually. Almost no one acts on it with enough urgency. The Torah demands urgency. Not panic, but urgency. The ancient rabbis taught that every day of financial discipline is a seed planted, and every day of financial carelessness is a seed that simply never gets planted. The harvest is always proportional to the planting. I want to tell you about two brothers. Both grew up in the same household, same parents, same neighborhood, same school. When their father died, he left them each an identical inheritance, $40,000. The first brother did what almost everyone does. He upgraded his lifestyle, a better car, a bigger apartment, some new clothes, some travel, and he invested what remained, which, after 18 months of upgraded living, was approximately $7,000, into a savings account earning 1% interest. The second brother did something different. He divided the inheritance into 3 parts, following a principle his grandfather had taught him from the Talmud. One portion went into assets that would grow over time. One portion went into a business venture he had been researching for 2 years. And one portion went into a liquid reserve, untouched, unavailable, protected. He changed nothing about his lifestyle. 20 years later, same brothers, same starting point, identical inheritance. The first brother had accumulated approximately $22,000 in total savings. He had spent 2 decades working hard, earning a good income, and watching it disappear into a lifestyle that consumed everything it touched. The second brother had built a net worth of over $800,000. He had not earned more money. He had not worked harder. He had simply used a system. This is not a parable. This is mathematics. And the mathematics originates directly from the Torah. The third principle, and this is perhaps the most uncomfortable truth in this entire video, is what the Torah teaches about the relationship between wealth and obligation. Most people in the modern world think about wealth as a reward. You work hard, you succeed. You earn money, and then the money is yours to do with as you please. The Torah teaches something fundamentally different. It teaches that wealth is not a reward, it is an obligation. In Leviticus, the Torah commands the practice of tzedakah. This word is often translated as charity, but that translation is incorrect. The Hebrew root of tzedakah is tzedek, which means justice, righteousness. In the Torah's framework, giving a portion of your wealth to those in need is not generosity. It is justice. It is what a righteous person does, not because it makes them feel good, but because the Torah demands it. And here is the financial paradox that the Torah builds into this system: the discipline required to give consistently, to treat a portion of your wealth as inherently not yours, as belonging to others, is the exact same discipline that builds wealth in the first place. The person who can give without resentment is the person who has learned to live below their means. The person who has learned to live below their means is the person who accumulates capital over time. And the person who accumulates capital over time is the person who builds generational wealth. Tzedakah is not a tax on wealth. In the Torah's teaching, it is a prerequisite for it, because the mindset required to give freely is exactly the mindset required to delay gratification, to save consistently, and to always choose the long game over the short one. Now let me give you the fourth principle, the one I believe is the most powerful teaching the Torah contains about money. It is found in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Jewish financial culture treats the education of children in financial principles not as a bonus, not as something nice to add on top of a regular education, but as a primary obligation, a sacred duty. For generations, Jewish families have taught their children to understand money before they can fully understand most other things. What money is, how it works, how it grows, what it costs to borrow, what it truly means to save. By the time most Jewish children reach adulthood, they have been surrounded by financial conversations, financial examples, and financial expectations for their entire lives. Compare this to what most children are taught about money. Nothing. The average school curriculum in the Western world contains almost zero meaningful instruction in personal finance. Children graduate having studied literature, mathematics, history, and science, and knowing almost nothing about how to manage, grow, or protect the money they will spend the rest of their lives trying to earn. This is not accidental. An educated consumer is a less profitable consumer. A financially literate population borrows less, saves more, and generates significantly less revenue for the institutions that profit from financial ignorance. The Torah understood this problem 3,000 years before consumer credit existed, and the solution it prescribed, teach your children, is the most subversive financial act available to any family, in any generation, anywhere on earth. There is one final piece of this puzzle that almost everyone overlooks completely. It is not the principles themselves. Every principle I have shared today is documented, freely available, translated into dozens of languages, and accessible to anyone with an internet connection or a library card. The real difference, the piece that actually explains the gap, is transmission. Jewish communities did not simply teach these principles. They embedded them into culture, into daily ritual, into celebration and into mourning, into the Sabbath meal and into the business conversation and into the bedtime story told to a 6-year-old child. The Shabbat table is not merely a religious gathering. For generations, it has been the place where fathers and grandfathers discussed business decisions, financial mistakes, and the meaning of money, where children sat quietly and absorbed an entire financial worldview before they had words to describe it. This is called cultural transmission. And it is more powerful than any school, any book, or any investment strategy ever created by human beings. You can read every finance book ever written. You can intellectually understand compound interest, asset allocation, and tax strategy. But if your daily environment, the culture you live inside, quietly teaches you that money is shameful, that wanting wealth is greedy, that financial ambition is selfish, your knowledge will never override your environment. The Torah built the environment, not just the knowledge, and that is the piece nobody ever talks about. So here is the answer that nobody wants to hear. After 3,000 years of Torah teaching, after everything examined together today, after the statistics, the principles, the stories, and the ancient texts, the reason Jewish families build wealth while others stay broke is not a secret code. It is not a conspiracy. It is not a supernatural advantage. It is this: they were taught to think about money differently. From childhood, every generation, without interruption. For 3,000 years, they were taught that money is a stewardship, not an identity. That time is the most valuable asset, not income. That wealth comes with obligation, not just reward. That giving sharpens every other financial discipline. And that the greatest gift you can leave your children is not money. It is a culture of wisdom. The uncomfortable truth is that this system is available to every human being on earth. It has always been available. It requires no membership, no ancestry, no special access, but it requires something most people are genuinely unwilling to give. It requires changing not just what you do, but who you are, what you value, what you teach, what you refuse to waste, and what you commit to building, not for yourself alone, but for every person who will come after you. That is the answer. And now you have it. Before you close this video, 3 actions. Not tomorrow. Tonight, first, write down the name of one child in your life. Your child, your nephew, your student. Commit to teaching them one financial principle every single week. One principle, that is all. Second, identify one area of your finances where you are thinking in months instead of years. One place where short-term comfort is costing you long-term growth. Write it down. That is where your real work begins. Third, read one chapter of Proverbs this week, not for religious purposes, for financial education. The book of Proverbs contains more practical wisdom about money, business, and human nature than most best-selling finance books published in the last 50 years. It is freely available. It has been freely available for 3,000 years. The system exists. The wisdom exists. The only question that has ever mattered is whether you are willing to use it. The Talmud teaches, "Do not be afraid of sudden fear, nor of the storm of the wicked when it comes. For the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught." Financial security is not about having more money. It is about having a system that does not break under pressure, a foundation that holds when the storm arrives. The Torah built that foundation for an entire people across 3,000 years of the most difficult history any civilization has ever survived. It can build it for you too. If this video gave you even one principle worth keeping, share it with one person who needs it. Not for this channel, but because the Torah itself commands us to pass wisdom forward. Subscribe and join us every week as we bring ancient wisdom into the language of the modern world. The answers have always been here. We are simply learning to read them again.